Well, good afternoon. I'm Robert Crane. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Axcella, and I want to thank you for attending our presentation at the NobleCon conference. I also want to thank NobleCon for putting on such a great conference and at a unusual but very nice resort here in Florida. So Axcella Therapeutics is a company developing therapeutics for difficult diseases. First, I'm obliged, as we are a public company, to talk about our forward-looking statements. And you can see the detail here. I'm not going to bother to read it, but I'm sure if you invest in public companies, you've seen this before. So now on to Axcella. So Axcella, as I said, is developing therapeutics for difficult diseases. And what's special about Axcella is that we have readouts coming from ongoing clinical trials. We have a total of 3 of them currently in process. We have readouts coming 2 this year and 2 next year. So these are near-term readouts, and as you know, as investors in healthcare companies, readouts are value inflections. So the first of our readouts is going to come in the 3rd quarter of this year, and that's for long COVID. And long COVID has been getting a lot of press nowadays. It's a major disease that is around the world, and we'll talk in a little more detail about the disease and how we're treating it. In addition, also this year, we have a readout coming, which is an interim analysis on our Nash Trial. Nash is a serious liver disease, and we have an approach that we believe has a high likelihood of success. All of our indications, or all of our diseases that we're going after, are unmet markets for which there are no good therapies today, and we believe that if we do have success, we can have a meaningful impact, and that'll have a meaningful impact on healthcare and our company. In addition, we have, as we're talking about, we have strong IP. All of our IP goes out to at least 2037. And then finally, I think one thing that should give you some comfort is that we believe, some of the highest quality investors that exist in healthcare. We have Flagship Pioneering, the founder of Moderna. I think all of you have probably heard of that company. They are our largest shareholder. In addition, we have Fidelity, and not just Fidelity as a whole, but we have the biotech fund and their growth fund as investors. So they're very discriminating investors. And in addition to that, we have Nestle, one of the world's largest food companies, and we also have HarborVest as investors. So we believe we're well positioned to lead this company forward. So we take a different approach as to many healthcare companies. The foundation of what we do is based on amino acids and their derivatives. Amino acids are the building blocks for your cells. There's what produce proteins and allow you to live and to thrive. Now, by carefully choosing the amino acids we use with the appropriate combinations and appropriate ones, we're able to affect the progress of disease, as we'll show in some upcoming slides. So the first one we're going to talk about is long COVID, and everybody has been living the COVID world for the last 2 years, and thankfully we're out of masks as of when I was flying here the other day. So I want to go into a little detail as to long COVID. So we have approximately 500 million people in the United States have been affected or afflicted, I've said afflicted worldwide by long COVID. And data coming out of the UK and Israel is indicating about 20 to 30% of those people have long COVID. In other words, symptoms that are long-lasting, going beyond 12 weeks. The symptoms are varied in terms of their nature. We're still trying to understand it. In fact, the NIH has put forth roughly $1 billion to try to understand what's happening in long COVID. But what we do know is that the predominant symptom is fatigue. And you can see there are several other things that have been identified as important symptoms, but the predominant one is fatigue. And we know something about fatigue, and we know something about mitochondrial diseases. And that's allowed us to address what's happening with long COVID. And we've actually pushed forward long before this was even as understood as it is today, starting roughly 1 year ago in terms of putting together plans for a trial relating to long COVID. So long COVID has to do with, in our belief, the mitochondria. And what happens with viruses is viruses want to produce as many viruses as they can, as quickly as they can once they enter your cell. They hijack the energetics of the cell and they force it to what's called glycolysis, which is in essence what happens when you want to sprint. You need a lot of energy very quickly, and it pushes it towards that to have that energy to produce more virus particles, but it does dysregulate the cell. And that dysregulation can be long-term in terms of its impact, and we see that graphically and schematically in what you have in the slide behind me. Now, what we're able to do with our drug called 1125 is we're able to affect the dysregulation that occurs because of the virus, and we're able to push that back towards normal respiration or energy production in the cell. So what you have and what you want is you want fatty acid oxidation as opposed to glycolysis. And you can see as the concentration increases in the graph behind on the left that you see more fatty acid oxidation, which is a return to normalcy. You also see on the graph on the right, you see that glycolysis goes down and fatty acid respiration or creation of ATP goes up as you go to the right. So this is exactly what we want to do to correct this situation and directly address the problems of fatigue. So just getting through this in summary, and I can tell you if you have great interest, we have just almost seemingly limitless technical detail, but we're trying to make this something that is suitable for all audiences. So I'm giving you the overview, and by, again, changing to a more normal respiration, we're able to address not only the fatty acids, but also free radicals. We're able to address inflammation and better immune response as you go forward. So all of this are the sort of the solutions to this problem. And now let's talk about the trial that we have underway. So we started this trial last year, 40 subjects. The trial is occurring in Oxford University in the UK. They are world-renowned for their knowledge in long COVID, well-published, and we're dealing with the experts, probably the experts in the world in terms of this, and they're conducting this trial. And what we're focusing on is lactate levels, 6-minute walk, fatigue scores, and what's called PCR recovery time. Assuming we can get a positive signal out of this, we have a strong indication that we're having a material impact on this disease. And again, as I mentioned before, we expect to have results from this trial coming out in the third quarter of this year. I'm going to go on and describe the other diseases, and of course at the end we'll leave adequate time for questions. So the next one we have is what's called NASH. So NASH is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. This is an affliction that is affecting a large portion of our population, and we can get some of the details as we look at this slide. NASH is on the sort of the progression towards cirrhosis. I think many of you have heard cirrhosis. If you know the seriousness of cirrhosis, you know basically you're getting to end-stage patients at that point, and there's not a lot of hope. So we're trying to arrest the progress with medications towards NASH. There have been a number of attempts at this in the past, all of which have either failed or mostly failed, and we believe that we offer to the world the best combination of safety and efficacy that maximizes our chance of success. So with that, we're well along in this trial. You can see in terms of the market size is immense with 40 million patients, and the healthcare costs are immense as well. And you can see the estimate of the lifetime costs on the order of $300 billion, truly staggering in terms of the overall costs. Now, this next slide is important because the way we address disease is not a monotherapy. Most of you are used to monotherapy, so one drug sort of solves all the problems. Now, if you have NASH, if you have long COVID, if you have encephalopathy, there are many things that are dysregulated. So the simplistic idea that you can just do one thing and solve all the problems is really just excessively simplistic, and is really the reason that over the last 30 years, we've had very little success in trying to deal and address metabolic diseases. So we actually deal with it with 6 different amino acids. We've optimized the combination of those acids, amino acids, to what we believe is most likely to have effect. So as you look at this slide, you can see the many different things we're trying to titrate and return to normalcy. So, and you see sort of some of the targets and pathways, but simply stated, if we look at the second column, what is our goal? Reduce fat deposited in the liver, lipotoxicity. Increase insulin sensitivity, obviously a central tenet of diabetes. Reduce the hepatic cells taking in fat, that's hepatic ballooning. Reduce inflammation. Obviously, if there's a problem in the body, inflammation is very common. And then reduce fibrotic and fibrogenesis and the progression to cirrhosis. So we do all of that at once with this drug. We also deliver it orally. All of our drugs are delivered orally. And they're a little packet or sachet. You mix it up with water and you drink it. So it's a very easy delivery, and it's consistent with the types of patients we're dealing with and how they live their lives. So to give you more confidence in terms of what we've done, we've already had 2 human clinical trials on each of NASH and hepatic encephalopathy. So that's really important to know. So we've been able to determine what works best. And now we're conducting a trial where we're trying to verify what we found before. We believe if we can verify what we found before, we're going to have a successful product that we can take to phase 3 clinical trials. So here you see the effect on many of the important indicators of success in treating liver disease. On this slide, what we've done is we've looked at thresholds that are important, that we believe are indicative and important to doctors, to the medical profession, showing that you have an effect and an important effect in addressing these diseases. And the orange bars are indicative of achieving each of those thresholds, which are very high numbers in a disease for which there is no medication that exists today. So we're very happy with that, and we believe that's indicative of a powerful effect as we go forward. Now, looking at the trials itself, a large trial, 270 patients are being enrolled. So we're well along in this trial, and like I said, there will be a readout, what's called an interim readout, that's going to occur in Q3, very late Q3 of this year. And again, we believe it's very important in terms of giving an indication of what the progress is, and a positive indication will be one of the very, very few companies that have been able to show a positive arresting of or reducing of the symptoms of NASH. Hepatic encephalopathy. So spend a minute on that. Hepatic encephalopathy is a problem of the liver. The liver is a very complex organ, perhaps the most complex organ in your body short of your brain. Some will say it's even more complicated than your brain. The liver either neutralizes or creates about 6,000 different substances, really a daunting task for any organ in the body. So it's not something you can easily resolve by giving them one therapy. This disease is very large in terms of the number of patients. We're also dealing with some very brittle and very frail patients. They get confused, they fall, they produce a lot of ammonia, and there's literally nothing that can be done with these patients right now that's effective, and we're trying to do something to try to reverse the course of these hepatic encephalopathy episodes. Again, as you saw earlier on a previous slide, you see that we have a combination of medications or amino acids that we use. We've optimized again for this different disease with this combination that you see. And I'll leave it to you. You can look at it. But I do want to point out that ammonia is a serious problem with hepatic encephalopathy, and we put in some very specific amino acids to address that. What it also does is that the body, left to its natural course, will actually eat the muscle in the remainder of the body to try to address this excess of ammonia. And that just furthers the condition of these patients and makes them even more frail. So we're very much focused on trying to address that. Here you see some results from some of our earlier clinical trials, which we believe are indicative of positive results that will be, in our belief, a drug that we want to take into phase 3 and will be ultimately something that should be approvable with the FDA. Here are further results showing the effect when we reach certain thresholds in terms of reductions. These are psychometric scores and other types of measures that are used on these patients. The trial itself is, again, another large trial. 150 patients in this trial, and we're actually getting started. We're enrolling in this trial. We expect to have results in the second half of 2023 with this trial. So in summary, we have 3 drugs in the clinic, 3 drugs well along, and we have clinical results that we expect to see in this year, 2 in the third quarter, and then 2 more in 2023. Now, just to give you a couple of other slides to show you other aspects of the company. Despite being amino acids, we are well patented here and well protected, with our earliest expiration being 3037. We're also well financed. We have $57 million as of year end. We just completed on March 16th another financing of $25 million with very strong support from the insiders that I mentioned. All of them came in and participated in this round. So we have sufficient proceeds to the end of this year. And then finally, you see all the pretty faces here. I'm one of them, but I think the bottom line is a group of people who are highly experienced in doing this and have done many of these companies before, both in the large company setting and the small company setting. So that is a strong positive. We also have a very strong board in terms of experience. They're brought to bear on what we do every day. And then finally, just a reminder on our major milestones. We have a lot of them, and we just highlighted what we have in 2022. So our thesis for this company is we believe it represents a great value. We believe if you look at the value as of today, it's underappreciated in terms of its value, and we believe that positive results on any one of these drugs should more than address or have a multiple of value as we go forward. And anyone who's actually explored the complexities of NASH, the complexities of long COVID, and the market sizes, the amount of value that warrants is truly significant. So I'm going to leave it at that and throw it open for questions. I wanted to get just the key elements of our story and give you adequate time to answer any additional questions. Yes, sir. It is. Yeah, actually, I will stand corrected on that. We have 3 programs underway, and what we did, and so I'll just give you a little more detail on this on long COVID. So we were hearing issues of long COVID last year and patients that were really struggling after the disease, and we recognized that we had a drug that would address mitochondrial issues. And as we talked to the experts, their belief was the mitochondria is perhaps central in terms of what's happening. So what we did is we took that drug and we started a small trial, 40 patients, on long COVID. And that's the reason we're so far ahead of everybody else, is we very much went at risk to start this trial when a lot was not known. And obviously there's still not a lot not known because the NIH is investing $1 billion to try to figure it out. But you are correct. We have 2 drugs and 3 programs.
And is there a commonality in the causes of long COVID and NASH?
So there is some commonality. So energetics and mitochondrial issues are believed to be a major reason of NASH, that sort of spin out if you don't have adequate energy in your cell, it leads to a number of other problems and issues, and if you can't properly metabolize, say, the fat that exists, that's a serious problem in providing appropriate energetics. I mean, this can really be extended to aging in general, but now we're going down another avenue that I don't really want to address at this point. But energetics is a key problem in aging and even greater problem in disease. Okay, you have to ask another one.
Could it be used effectively for alcohol-driven cirrhosis?
So I think a good case can be made that, or hypothesis that this could address it as well. This is not the center point of our trial. And one of the reasons we try to do it this way is we want, in essence, a cleaner patient population that we're addressing. So as your patient population, and dirtier probably isn't the best word to do, but as you have a larger variation in your patient population, a larger variation of whether they'll actually comply with what they're supposed to do, it makes it more difficult to run a trial. And so what we'd like to do is maximize the likelihood of success in the trials that we have underway. And it's possible we may run another trial, or it's possible that the doctor, in his or her discretion, may decide to use the drug for that purpose as well.
I don't suppose you could give us a hint as to what the post-financial financing evaluation of the company is?
Well, we're a public company, so it changes every day. And so when, you know, the whole healthcare area is extremely unpredictable nowadays. And so when we did the round of financing, the $25 million, we did it at $1.91. And then within a couple of weeks, the stock actually went up 40%. And then we had evidently someone who really, really wanted to sell just about a week ago. And, you know, we had like 8 times our average daily volume, of which someone chose to sell like 4 times our normal volume in the last hour and twice our normal volume in the last 5 minutes. So we don't know who that is, and, you know, perhaps it represents a value for someone else. So, you know, it's frustrating in my role as a CFO to have that kind of behavior, but, you know, I have no control over it, and, you know, here I'm saying, you know, maybe you all can benefit from that.
And the current market cap is?
The current market cap, I'm sure you guys are more connected with it than I am, but, you know, yes, I am the CFO, but I don't obsess over the day-to-day market cap. I imagine it's 130 million, 120 million. And the reason I don't, I've done 35 of these companies. So I've been in it, and if you obsess over your market cap, you're really obsessing over the wrong things. What you really want to do is build long-term value. And you build long-term value by delivering drugs that work. So, you know, so that's absolutely my intent here. And I try to remind people within the company that this is not, you know, you're not looking to, we're not making money if we make 10 cents on it. We want to have the stock not be $2, but, you know, many, many, many times that. And that would be indicative of successful drugs. Any other questions? All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I want to thank you. And we do have this presentation on our website. So, you know, please feel free to take a look at it there. And, you know, if you do have further questions, either meet me outside, and I'm happy to answer it, or you can get my card and send me an email. Or I think at IR email, that will eventually get to me as well. So really appreciate everybody who's showed up. And if there are no further questions, we will Thank you for attending.